You need to understand that beating a Souls game is a literal badge of honor. A badge of honor which I have yet to gain. But all of that has changed with Elden Ring. This was my first Souls-like game experience, and not only did I beat this game, I platinumed this game. So today we're going to be talking about Elden Ring. The many highs, the many lows, and the many dopamine kicks that this game has provided to me. And have no mistake about it, have it writ on thy meager grave, that Elden Ring is a masterpiece.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
Upon my name as Godfrey.
Join myself and King as Rameez. Witness tarnished. Why cover destined death? To kill what?
Now these games always intimidated me. Dark Souls, Demon Souls. I remember picking up the first Demon Souls on the PS3 when I was a bit younger, and that game destroyed me. I didn't even get halfway through it before I quit it, and I firmly put myself in the pack of people that said, you know what? Those games just aren't for me. Well, here's the twist in the story. So the story goes, I played this other great game which was called Black Myth Wukong, and I did pretty good at it, and I actually quite enjoyed it. And what happened is the sensors in my house, the microphones started to go off, and then it went up into the YouTube algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, and it started feeding me stuff about Elden Ring, so I pulled the trigger. This review, I started writing it when I had played 100 hours of the game. It was supposed to come out much earlier, but as you can see, it has been much more time playing this game. It just kept going and going and going, man. You know what's the best part about these games, which I took way too long to realize? It's not the graphics, which are great. It's not the boss design, which is first in class. It's not the beautiful art direction in which every frame and vista you visit looks like a friggin' painting. You know what it is? It's the feeling you get at the end of a very tough foe. When you vanquish that tough foe. The gameplay loop is basically, alright, here's a really unfair boss. Now go find something that can beat him. I need you to understand that while playing this game, there were moments in which I had such unbridled joy that I witnessed tears of joy and tears of ecstasy. It is just that powerful of a game. FromSoftware has grown leaps and bounds in the past decade, and have delivered multiple back-to-back games with critical acclaim. AAA games have also copied a lot of elements from other games, but there always existed a widespread mainstream appeal to their games, so much so that any game similar to this is branded as a Souls-like. I don't know if that bothered FromSoftware, pigeonholing them into one singular genre, but every company at the end of the day would want growth. So in order to gain higher growth, FromSoftware did make a lot of changes to Elden Ring, and you can see the changes from the very beginning. The cover art is a good starting point. The cover art has changed from demonic structures and black and gray coloring to a much more vibrant and striking cover, which depicts the struggle of the Elden Ring. Almost all FromSoftware Souls-like games depict a destroyed and decaying world. We have that in Elden Ring as well, but its decay is variable. We have beautiful areas lush of wildlife. Walk a little east, you're in Caelid. You go up north, we have the Land of the Giants, where everything is gigantic. It makes the game more diverse and much more than just a Souls-like. The fact that it's open world also encourages exploration and farming, putting you at ease for a big boss, knowing you can level up. The co-op multiplayer is also a great piece of the package. You don't have to go it alone in this game. This is a much more accessible game than their previous games, and the open world and excellent multiplayer integration is a big part of it. Now, I've been a part of the multiplayer community for a long time, from the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Halo LAN parties, Counter-Strike cafes used to be littered all around our city, along with being a part of those communities, which had their ups and downs. I think the multiplayer community in Souls-likes is actually pretty neat.
You're beautiful.
I can't count how many times I just chuckled at the many times I had to read the messages, try finger, but hole, or just the niceness of the people in Elden Ring. I remember I had this one player who just guided me around one dungeon and then just started speaking on the mic, and he told me, hey, do you need any weapons? I'm on New Game Plus 7. Here you go. One of which was a legendary armament, which I missed because my capital had turned to ash, and you can't get the Bolt of Grandsax when it's the ash capital. And he was like, hey, you know what? I'll just go grind it, and here you go. And he gave it to me. He also helped me get introduced into the DLC. He was like, you know what, I'll guide you through this. He helped me fight Rolana, Mesmer, and the Divine Beast dancing line as well. And in return, I helped him fight a few other bosses. Invasions are a thing too. People can invade your game. And they can be a hit or miss. Some of the mechanics are not something which I like, but the only negative part about invasions I saw are the people who have a special place in hell. Those people who invade outside of a boss door. Bro, I'm about to go fight Malenia or Radahn. He's hard enough. Just leave the game. Some invasions are a lot of fun though, and they come out of nowhere. Some invasions have the entire team dying. Some invasions have me doing something like this because I'm a over-leveled Faith and Arcane player. Have a look. That was a really nice revenge clip. The host ended up dying. I was helping him fight a DLC boss. The host died. We'll get to the DLC bosses in another video. And the reward factor of the multiplayer element is extremely high as well. Just imagine you're struggling with an annoying boss such as Malenia. You're dying to her over and over and over. You get someone to help and suddenly you're starting to crack it. And then when you beat her, and then you finally help that first person beat her, it becomes sort of an adrenaline rush to beat that boss again, to help other people. The story takes place in the lands between. Hidetaka Miyazaki was heavily involved with George R.R. Martin, who is a prolific writer, mainly known for Game of Thrones, but I'm pretty sure he's written a lot of great stuff as well. Lots of Game of Thrones type stuff going on over here. We are involved in a power struggle in which we have to mend the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring in its physical form or figurative form is a holy entity of sorts. This holy entity dictates how the world will run. Similar to the Spice in Dune or the Emperor of Mankind in Warhammer. A holy entity or structure which is fundamental to this world existing is the Elden Ring in our world. The queen of this world, Queen Marika, the holy entity who controls the Elden Ring, had it shattered into many pieces, which her sons and daughters and half-brothers and half-sisters, and the list goes on, end up finding and fighting over, because each piece broken from the Elden Ring becomes a great rune. And again, the power struggle just expands, and you are thrown into this world by saying, all right, go get those broken rune shards, fix the Elden Ring, and become the Elden Lord. That in itself is very interesting, but layering the information in sparse information drops, which tell us what each of them was planning to do with these great runes and what their vision was of how this world was supposed to function according to them. One is just safeguarding their rune.
Oh, death, become my blade once more.
One is planning an elaborate heist to bring order with their rune.
Well then, shall we?
One just wants to devour the gods together. That's my best Rykard, by the way. All these elements and all these...
Together we will devour the very god.
The world of Elden Ring has many elements molded together. There's weird cosmic horror, Nordic mythology, medieval fantasy, and a whole lot of dragons. The game literally starts with you, the Tarnished, waking up and then opening a door. Go out into the world, walk in and create your own story. No long cutscenes, no boring tutorial which pauses the game every 5 seconds. You do get called maidenless in the first 5 seconds though.
Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
But just go out there and figure it out. The exploration is supremely rewarding in this game. You can end up finding secret areas. An insane boss fight might trigger out of the blue. And even the sites of grace have a reward of their own, from getting away from an enemy, taking some rest after fighting a really tough enemy. This game is expansive, and I mean expansive. The map is absolutely huge. Finding the map fragments is a whole big ass adventure on its own. There's a gigantic forest, there's a massive swamp area, there's a lake of rot. There's a Hogwarts in this world. There's a city which was suspended in the stars. There is insane variety in locales for you to explore. And I'm not even touching the underground caves and the secret dungeons. Every area we unlock has a unique aesthetic. The open world lends itself to some very nice and some very annoying platforming puzzles, especially the one after you fight Sewer Moog. I know you know what I'm talking about. But those platforming puzzles do provide a nice break from all the action. To traverse, we have a fast travel system and our handsome steed, Torrent, who very quickly becomes very useful, not just for travel, but he is the absolute best and cinematic way to fight a dragon as well. Torrent doesn't become too reliable as well, because there are some times where you are forced into fighting a dragon on foot. There is a level up system, which rewards you by letting you put points into your many stats. Each stat has scaling with your spells, sorceries, and weapons, of which there are many different affinities. Poison, Scarlet Rot, Bleed. Bleed being everyone's favorite, of course. Speaking of Bleed, I was carried in the first 50 hours of this game with the Bloodhound Fang. What a goated freaking weapon. If you guys know anyone who makes great replica swords, please let me know, as I think the Bloodhound Fang will look pretty good on the back of this wall. But the Bloodhound Fang was a great weapon. I moved into so many weapons which I can't even remember, but there was a time where I was using the Sword of Night and Flame quite a lot. The Star Fists I was using quite a lot. Rykard's Sword, the Blasphemous Blade, Malekith's Black Blade. Rykard's Sword actually came in clutch when I fought Radagon. I happened to get lucky and beat him first try. I was out of flasks, but it came clutch. That is a core memory which I have of this game, that Rykard's Sword was the one that helped me get past Radagon and Elden Beast first try. It's just such a cool weapon with a great special attack, and even the name is really cool. The Blasphemous Blade rolls off your tongue, really. What else? There's Ranni's Dark Moon Greatsword, Moog's Spear, Nihil. There's this great legendary weapon which people don't know about, which becomes very handy. It's called the Anspur Rapier, which we'll talk about in the DLC video. I was able to use spells, incantations, and sorceries of all kind, as somehow, I don't know how, I happened to reach level 306 in my first playthrough. Don't ask. I played a lot. I currently need 900,000 runes to go up one level. Yay. The one downside of all these weapons and getting to hold, you know, the boss's weapons, especially the boss's weapons, is they tend to lose their aura once they come into my hands. You also receive the opportunity to respec your stats, which is of course locked behind a boss. You have to kill a boss to get that opportunity. I kinda never had to use Renala's respecking ability, neither did I have to use a single rune arc in my playthrough. You guys remember when the selling point for Cyberpunk 2077 was your Cyberpunk, your way? And it kind of turned out to be a half-truth. I do love that game, by the way. Review of it is in the pipeline. But that turned out to be a half-truth. However, in Elden Ring, that statement is a complete and factual truth. Literally, play it your own way. You don't want to fight this boss? Come back later. Certain things can be made more dynamic, such as the UI of the level up system, like God of War has. But in the grand scheme of things and the level of detail and the usability of each item and everything you get, it's a drop in the ocean. Embers of fire populate the scenery after you hit a certain point. The soundtrack, some of which is stuck in my mind forever. The music at the first step, Liurnia, Mohg's Palace, the Mohg fight, the Star Scourge fight, the Malenia fight. Such beautiful soundtracks, man. I listen to some of this music on my own while on my commute, while I'm, working out or trying to work out. It's a great soundtrack. All of it just comes together to present, like I said, these painting-like images. The music to the build-up of the Star Scourge Radahn fight, which is quite reminiscent of Halo, is another core memory, and I can't wait to play that fight again, just because of the build-up. It's also very good game design. You need to make the stars align, and you have to figure out how to make the stars align. It took me quite a while, but just that whole quest, it was so well done.
The celebration of war! The Radahn Festival!
And it was built and made even more epic because of that last step of anticipation with that music. Boss arenas are varied and unique. Rykard's arena is one of my favorite. Malenia has a great arena to fight in, pretty big. The Lake of Agil, where you fight the Agil dragon, is awesome as well. Again, these are all very different experiences, and how you fight the boss is also going to give you a very different experience than that of mine, which I think is very important for a game to have. No one likes a game in which all of us are sharing the same experience. Some people struggle with certain bosses, some people don't. What's missing? Well, a boss rush mode would be neat, like the Slobber Knocker mode in the previous SmackDown games. I'm talking old SmackDown games. Or we should be able to fight a boss again without having to start a new game plus playthrough. Now you might tell me, hey, why don't you just get summoned in multiplayer? Not everyone is going to summon you for Morgott. And not everyone's going to summon you for Margit or Godfrey either, or sometimes even Star Scourge Radahn. But I should be given the opportunity, once I've beaten the game, to have that option. And I believe it was in Sekiro as well. I never played Sekiro, but I'm getting very intrigued by it day by day. What the PC community has been able to do with Elden Ring and mods is nothing short of incredible. And I want the game to give me an opportunity to maybe play as a boss. Something similar was done in Wukong recently. I mean, I just saw a really cool fight on YouTube the other day, which was Mohg fighting Radahn from the DLC. And there was a sequence in which Mohg just tanked Radahn's holy attack by shouting Nihil, and it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Let me have that opportunity as well, man. Playing as Mohg, fighting for his honor and Sir Ansbach. We'll get to the DLC. But a photo mode is also of utmost importance. This game is just so beautiful. I need to be able to create more and get more out of it. But again, in the larger scheme of things, these are just asks for the future. Boss rush is unnegotiable though. That needs to be a thing in these games. The bosses. FromSoftware's identifier. The boss fights. The design, the lore, the weapons, their magic, their unfair damage output. That is what we all play these games for. Nothing gets your blood pumping when you beat an annoying boss, or two of them. I'm looking at you, Godskin Duo. But that feeling, that jump of joy, that adrenaline rush you get, that is why we play these games. And everyone's gonna have a different experience. Me personally, my first wall in this game was Mohg, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to beat him. So I left, and then I hit another wall, which was the fire giant. So I decided, you know what, let's try to cheat this, but I couldn't do it. I ended up beating Mohg. The key to that was just getting your mimic tier upgraded, and we went past it, but it's an incredible fight. Fire giant was a tougher wall I hit. I could not get past him, and I have no shame in saying I cheesed him. I got him stuck on that big wall, and I had Latenna, the Albinoric, the archer, to shoot her arrows. It took 15 minutes. I have no shame. I hated that boss. Putrid avatars were annoying. Black Blade, Kindred, God. That was annoying too. Imagine how I felt when I found out that you gotta fight 2 Black Blade Kindreds at one time. I enjoyed all the dragon fights, fighting a dragon on horseback. What a show. I managed to beat Starscourge Radahn on the first try as well, but I really feel that fight is incredible. The entire theme of the festival and getting the opportunity to have your friends just get summoned like the Avengers and you see them just running up to Radahn. It's awesome, man. I beat Radahn first try, but then I struggled on Morgott. He clapped me a lot. Melina was of no help either, by the way. If I had to pick my favorite boss fights, they would be Starscourge Radahn. Rykard was awesome. I loved the Godfrey fight, the first Elden Lord fight, especially when he turns into Horalu. And I honestly think Godfrey should have had a second health bar. Malenia, I struggled a lot in the beginning, but an amazing fight once you find out how to beat her. You still have to be good to beat her though. There is no cheese with her. The Rykard fight is just the epitome of epic. It's an epic arena fighting an epic monster with an epic weapon, by the way, the Serpent Hunter. I'm so pissed off that you can't use that weapon outside of the arena. It is so cool. And I loved Rykard, man. I just loved it when he started speaking. And I'm like, why does he sound like that? And the next shot is him literally pulling a sword out of his mouth. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then he goes, join the Serpent King as family.
Join the Serpent King as family. Together we will devour the very god.
Which fight is the most satisfying? Well, of course, it has to be Malenia. I struggled with her a lot. My Mimic and I were doing quite good every now and then, but it just wasn't working out, man. So I had to cave in. I had to summon people from multiplayer. 2 people helped me, Furled Finger Sedua and Furled Finger Melly Melly. If you end up watching this, thank you. That is another core memory, and I'm so happy that I recorded that gameplay of when we finally beat Malenia. And look what happens when we finally beat Malenia. Look at our celebrations.
I finally met my match.
Malenia literally beat my ass cheeks into a slab of flat concrete. But it is one of the most rewarding things you will ever do in a game. And it's not an unfair fight. She will punish you. You have to figure it out. You have to learn her moveset. You have to remember that this woman also beat Radahn. This is a tough warrior, and the game never lets you forget it. The first Elden Lord fight is amazing as well. I came quite over leveled into this, level 182 I believe, and I got him first try, but man, he was a tough foe. He almost vanquished me. I think I was down to 3 flasks by the end. And the aura of Godfrey is just insane, man. This fight has a great sound to it as well. It goes from a pretty orchestral vibe in the first half, and when Godfrey transforms into Horalu, it starts sounding like a car crash with sirens and stuff like that. The music sets the stakes so well, and it reminds you that you are literally close, steps away from the Elden Ring. The upcoming footage is hilarious, what you're about to watch. Just my Mimic here going to town on him with bleed on, and I had some holy affinity to my sword. Please have a look.
Thy strength befits a crown.
final boss battle, Radhanon and Elden Beast. I got quite lucky. I also beat them first try, but not without struggle. I clutched up with the Elden Beast, and all thanks to Torrent, the legend. But it's a really cool fight. I love the soundtrack on Elden Beast, and I wish, there was more to it. Moog is another badass fight where you gotta think on the fly. His Nihil move causes so much damage until you figure out that you gotta heal as he's hitting with you with the blood loss. Or if you find a tear for your physics. When he started counting down, I think it's in Latin, when I realized that it was a countdown, I knew from the get-go that I'm about to get clapped. I've said more than enough. Every boss fight in this game slaps, aside from the repeated ones. Funny enough, the dragons are almost all repeated and have the same movesets, but I always chuckled with glee when I had to walk into a dragon arena. Placidusax being one of the best fights I've ever had. Another cinematic ending. Have a look. What can make Elden Ring better? Well, for starters, FromSoftware, you need to stop cutting out really cool stuff which happens in the lore of your game. Keep those in. I don't want to have to look up a YouTube video and be enthralled by all the stuff that you left out. What this game and all other games need to start incorporating into their game design is the end game stuff. Once the story ends, the world shouldn't feel empty. Give me at least a few more hours to explore what happens after I've beaten the game. This is a problem in some of the Rockstar games as well, aside from RDR2, which has a really good chapter dedicated to the endgame portion. I think more studios need to start doing that. The creator of Elden Ring, Hidetaka Miyazaki, who's also created the Souls games, has famously said that hardship is what gives meaning to the experience. This can be true for all life as well. And I know it can be very tough to get into a game like this, which is a very hard entry point for any game. And playing a game like this after work could be seen as you being a glutton for punishment. But nothing beats the glory of finding a bitch-ass boss, losing to him multiple times, and then figuring out a way to beat him. It just never gets old. The gameplay loop is just absolutely golden over here. If you haven't guessed it, this far into the review, I absolutely loved this game, and this is getting a 5 out of 5 stars. I am a bit disappointed that I played this 2 years after release, but I'm happy that I got to play it coinciding with the DLC, which will indeed have its own separate review, which we'll talk about later. Until then, people, thank you so much for watching. I did start a Twitch channel. I'm still navigating the world of streaming. Maybe it is I'm getting old, but any tips you have would really help me, like such as what camera to buy. Do I need a microphone if I can stream with my PS5 and there's a microphone in my controller? Some tips like that would be appreciated. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Keep playing. GG.